Hello and welcome to the Chop Shop. My name is Dion Tucker. In this video, I'm going to talk about the difference between this plunger mute and this plunger mute. Let's check it out. If you're a trombonist who uses the plunger as a mute, you're going to want to stick around and check out this video because I'm excited to share this new plunger mute that just came out. But before I jump into that, I want to thank everybody out there who's continued to support the channel. And if you haven't done so yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you can get a heads up on whenever I put out a new video. So I'm excited because it's finally here. The new KR Indigo Big Blue Plunger, designed by my good friend and amazing trumpet player, Kenny Rampton, who plays in the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra, which is led by Wynton Marsalis. Kenny and his partner, Ed Hirschman, designed this mute, and it is absolutely the best plunger mute that I've ever played. I've had a great plunger for most of my career, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second. But this mute here is absolutely a game changer. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the differences between this mute and my old mute. I haven't tried this particular mute yet. I play the prototype, but I haven't tried this one yet. So I'm going to play it for the first time on camera here and just talk about some of the things that I feel and some of the differences between this mute and my old plunger. So let's dive into it. This day is bittersweet because breaking in this new plunger kind of means I have to put my old plunger to rest. And it's funny because a couple of months ago, my old plunger fell apart, pretty much fell apart. But it had a lot of sentimental value and I've been using this plunger for years. So let me tell you a little bit about it. So this particular plunger held special meaning to me because when I inherited it from my good friend Alvin Walker, trombonist in the Count Basie Orchestra, he got this plunger from another alumnus and former leader of the Count Basie Orchestra, Grover Mitchell. Now, Grover was a trombonist with Count Basie for many years, and the first time I played with the Count Basie band, Grover was leading the band. So it was really special for me to have this plunger and for me to take it all over the world and play with it. I worked with the Duke Ellington Orchestra for about 13 years, and this was my plunger. This plunger has been everywhere with me, and it's been everything to me. But it's time for it to get retired. Not because I have a new one, but because it's pretty broken down now. I mean, it's a piece of rubber, so there's all kinds of things like this part being torn off. It's really soft now. The inside parts of it have holes in it, so it doesn't really seal the sound the same kind of way. But hey, it's done its job. It's been amazing through the years. So I'm gonna go ahead and just retire this plunger right now. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. But it's time for you to go wherever plungers go when they're done plunging toilets. So before I put the plunger away entirely, let's look at a couple comparisons between the new Big Blue plunger and my former plunger. Let's call this Little Brown for now. So the size is very similar. What I will say about the Big Blue plunger is it's a little bit bigger than the other plunger that I had. Now this Big Blue model also comes in the size for a bass trombone as well, which is going to be even a little bit bigger than this one that I have here. But the size is pretty comparable to the plunger that I had before, which is a good thing, which lets me know automatically it's going to cover the bell really well for most horns. Now another thing I was surprised about was the feel, the way that this new plunger feels. It's not so far off from how my old plunger feels. Now, if you have an old rubber plunger, over time, after you squeezing it, it's gonna get really squishy. Some players like that. They like it really, really squishy, so they're able to bend and manipulate the mute while they're playing. This mute, when I tried the prototype, it wasn't as squishy, but this one is. I can squeeze it, I can bend it. So that's important, and I think this is going to hold up much better over time because of the material that it's made out of. But being able to squeeze the plunger and manipulate it while you're playing is something that's really important, actually. So they got that much covered, in the comparison as to feel. This just feels really good in the hand. So one of the things that's a little bit different about this mute is the way that you're going to have to hold it. Now, because they have this contraption in there called the Kenny Penny, which I think is really slick. And what it does is you're able to close it, and you can totally close off the hole, the opening of the plunger, and get a full buzz sound, which is something that I'll demonstrate later. But because of that, you can't just pick up the plunger and hold it any kind of way. So with my old plunger, I could pick it up at any point and grab it, and it can go all the way around my hand. In this case, I can't do that because of the penny, because of the Kenny Penny. So you're going to be holding the plunger pretty much where the penny is on top, and you're holding it the same way every time. Is that a bad thing? I don't think so. It's just something that you're going to have to get used to, but it's definitely something to note when you buy this plunger, that you're going to be holding it one way because of the Kenny Penny contraption that's in there. Now, another thing that I've been impressed by is the weight of the plunger. When I first saw this new plunger, I thought it was going to be heavy. It just kind of looked heavier than my old plunger. But really, it feels quite similar. The weight is very comparable. So it shouldn't be that different from, as far as how it feels in your hand when you're moving it back and forth, that should feel very similar to the weight of an older plunger. So ultimately, the best way to check this thing out is to play it. So let me grab my horn and do just that. Like I said, this is going to be my first time playing this particular plunger, so I'm going to give you some real-time feedback as to what I'm feeling and what type of things I'm noticing as I play. So this is my first time testing this mute out. Like I said, I haven't played this particular one. I have tried the prototype, which was amazing, so I expect nothing less from this. So I'm gonna just blow a few notes, go from open to closed to just kind of see how the mute deals with the pitch, which was one thing I was really impressed with the prototype about. Now that's impressive. When you can close the mute all the way and it stay in tune, that's a big deal. That really is a big deal. So I really like the way it feels in my hand. Just the open and closeness of it feels really good. When you close, it doesn't feel like it's banging on the bell. Sometimes when you close, you can feel like it's gonna hit you in the face, but this doesn't do that. It has some give, so I really like that. Now, one thing that's always important is finding that closed position to where it's all the way closed and open. So I'm finding now that if I just leave my hand in place, the plunger, the size of the plunger is suited more for it to just cover the bell really well. So that's great. And as far as movement, I'm finding that if I just leave my hand there and move the plunger, I can still get all the inflections. Now that was a little more difficult. Let me grab my old plunger. That was a little more difficult with my old plunger to do. I used to have to finesse each note a little bit more. As you can see, the pitch is really different. That's all the way closed. So the rubber makes it a little bit heavier, which changes the sound, which can probably help when you're playing a little bit louder. But when I do that full close, it changes the pitch pretty drastically. When I do the same thing with this new plunger here, so there's definitely a lightness that I like about it. It feels really light, but when you close it all the way, the pitch is still there, and it feels like you still have good control over just like holding the horn. Yeah, that feels really good. And I don't feel like when I go into the upper register, I'm really gonna lose the pitch so much, which is rare. See, before I would feel like those two are kind of on different partials, but this doesn't really feel like that. This kind of feels like it's all on the same partial. So you still kind of get that whole step when you're up there, but it doesn't feel the same. It feels more like you're just playing that B flat. Man, that's amazing. It feels so easy. So that's a little bit with the open horn. Let me try it when you close the penny. Now let's see what that does. So I have the Kenny penny closed now. So let's see how that affects the sound and the pitch. So that raises the pitch a little bit. But most importantly, the feel. When you blow, it still feels the same. So let me play around a little bit with this. This is with the penny closed all the way. So I notice now with the penny closed, it makes a pretty big difference when you try and open and close all the way. Yeah, so adding some flutter tone in the upper register, the penny close doesn't bother the pitch and the airflow as much as what I'm noticing right now. So that feels pretty good. Now I'm gonna try and adding the pixie mute to that, which is very common mute to use with the plunger, and see what that does to some of these sounds. All right, so now I got my pixie mute to add to the plunger, and this is just a standard pixie. I did take the stem out. Thank you very much, Al Gray, for that. And what this does is it's gonna change the timbre of the horn, so it's gonna sound more metallic. But with the plunger, this is really when we get into more of the horn talking. So I'm gonna have this is with the penny open, the Kenny penny is open. Let me just test out what it feels like with the pixie mute and this new plunger. Yeah, it just feels really good. The biggest thing I'm feeling is less effort. The plunger, the regular old rubber plunger, it can add a lot of effort to when we play the plunger. It still requires a lot of practice, but this just overall feels a lot easier when it's time to blow. Yeah, it feels just more fluid. Like I can just let the air go and really just use the plunger as an inflection. That's what we're supposed to do. But sometimes with it changing pitch and timbre and the airstream and all of that, sometimes it's kind of difficult. This has definitely made plunger playing a little bit easier in my opinion. All right, so let's try one more thing. Let's go ahead and close the penny and see what that feels like with the pixie mute. So I feel like I gotta push it out a little bit more, but just the physics of it makes sense. The hole is closed all the way with the penny closed. So you're gonna have to put a little bit more oomph behind it. But I do hear a little bit more metallic sound when I kind of push the air a little bit. Now that was that buzz I talked about a little bit earlier in the video. So with the penny closed, I can feel the vibration. I can feel it pushing on the mute. Without it, I still feel it a little bit. I still feel it a little bit pushing the mute. Not a big deal at all, because it still feels free, but that's just kind of what I'm feeling in the plunger hand. But it still feels good. Let me go back to having it closed and just playing around with it a little bit. So this mute definitely feels really, really good. It feels a lot better than my old plunger, I gotta say. And that's just me being 100% honest. It just feels good. And I think the fact that I feel free to do what it is that I want to do, that freedom is half of the battle right there. So knowing that I have a tool that's gonna help me feel more free in my plunger playing is something that I'm truly, truly grateful for. So in conclusion, when you're done watching this video, make sure you go ahead and get yourself one of these KR Indigo Big Blue Plunger Mutes. Like I said, it's tenor and bass trombone size, so they got you covered. It's really the best plunger mute that I've played, and I don't know if there's been truly a plunger mute designed for the trombone. So a big thank you to Ed and Kenny for this great invention. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out. I'll see you next time at the Chop Shop.